Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 197 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book, From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing, is available now. Just came out 3 weeks ago. Go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there's nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, one of my favorite things to do as a kid was to watch magicians or illusionists on television. So for me, David Copperfield was my guy growing up because I was an 80s kid. So seeing him walk through the Great Wall of China was something else. This guy was suspended in a straitjacket. He did the escape at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. He made the Orient Express train car disappear, a jet plane disappear, and even the Statue of Liberty disappear. But most of all, what was great about David Copperfield is his best skill was actually his storytelling. Perhaps that's where my love of storytelling and speaking comes from. We'll never know. Now, I want to tell you about our next guest. After performing his first magic trick at the ripe old age of 2 years old, Jake Schwartz was instantly hooked on magic. He never grew out of the magic within the tricks. And Jake is now one of the fastest rising young stars of magic in the country. Jake is an international award-winning magician who has performed all over the world, including Fortune 500 companies like the CBRE Real Estate, Philadelphia Phillies, the Philadelphia Union, the world-famous Claridge Hotel in Atlantic City, and he was the youngest headliner to ever sell out the esteemed Smoke and Mirrors Magic Theater in Philadelphia. Outside of being a world-class magician, Jake is a huge Philadelphia Flyers fan and a Penn State football fan. He's also an avid musician. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Oh my goodness, what an intro.
I
pressure,
practiced
right?
a little bit, but if you want to take me out on the road with your magic act, I can do the intro and then you'll come behind with the magic.
That's exactly what I need. I just need somebody. Get yourself somebody who supports you the way Michael supports me. That's what I need.
Yes, I'm absolutely available for that job, and I'll be entertained during your show every single time. So
there you go.
Would be fantastic for both of us. It's a win-win situation as far as I'm
exactly.
So, all right, so I just got telling the audience, I just got done telling them that you performed your first magic trick at the ripe old age of 2. So where did this fascination with magic come from?
So the story kind of goes like this. I was a super picky eater, as a lot of people are when they were a kid. And so my parents would play this game with me to get me to eat. And the game was, hey, make your food disappear. And so I would eat my food, and then my parents were happy because it got me to eat. And really from that point on, and people don't believe that I've been doing magic since I was 2 years old. I literally was doing magic tricks, or doing some sort of magic tricks since I was 2 years old. We have a cute little home video of me saying some magic words over a little bean, and I ate the bean. And my dad afterwards makes me, he holds the camera and makes me go, I'll be here all week, that kind of thing. But really the fascination with magic started because of the reactions from my parents. That's what it was. That's what I got hooked on. It wasn't this, because a lot of people think of magic as, oh, either I win or you win, right? Either you figure it out and you win, or you don't figure it out and I win. But really, that's not what got me hooked on magic. What got me hooked on magic was after I would do the trick and my parents would go, whoa, and they would have that expression on their face, that, oh my gosh, expression that only a magic trick can give people. And I just really got addicted to being able to give that feeling to other people. And so that's kind of my driving force now, right? The goal is to give that amazing feeling that only a magic trick can give to as many people as I possibly can.
Well, I know you're going to do that for sure. I see bright things ahead for you, Jake. There's no question in my mind. And you decided on Penn State for your undergraduate experience, which is a fantastic institution. Been there many, many times. So why was Penn State the right choice for you?
So this is also kind of a little bit of a weird story. I grew up going to Penn State because both my parents went to Penn State. They met in State College. And so I grew up going to football games and just being in the Happy Valley area and atmosphere. I always loved it. I was always such a big fan. And so then when it was time for me to go to college, I faced the decision that a lot of people, especially today, are facing, which is, do I go or do I not even bother? Is it even worth it for me? Especially because at that point, I knew I wanted to do magic full time. So it was kind of like, well, I'm going to be doing magic anyway. There's no degrees there that are specifically going to get me further along as a magician. So I faced this decision. Long story short, I decided I'll take the SATs, I'll do everything I need to do and apply to Penn State, but only apply to Penn State. And that's what I did. So I only applied to one school. Now, granted, my bet was a little bit hedged because my SAT scores were above the average acceptance for Penn State. So I kind of, it wasn't as much of a gamble as it might seem. But with that being said, if I didn't get into Penn State, I would be a completely different person because I wouldn't have gone to college. Those 4 years, I changed more in those 4 years than I have at any other point in my life. So this kind of weird storyline, this decision making, one decision leads to the next, completely changed who I am as a person. And so I'm so grateful. Thank goodness I got into the one school I applied to, which was Penn State, because as I said, I did so much growing and came out of there a completely different person.
I agree with you completely. I'm also a very different person coming into college and graduating, especially after the fraternity experience and all the leadership that I got there. And so speaking about fraternities, you joined AE Pi fraternity at Penn State. So what was it about AE Pi that made this the right fraternity? Because there are plenty of fraternities at Penn State.
Yeah, well, this is also a bit of a funny story. I rushed around and I wanted to make sure that I got to every fraternity and met with all these people and whatever. And again, like I said, I went into college like a really, how should I put this diplomatically? I was an innocent guy and I really didn't, party that much in high school. I didn't really go out that much in high school. So I went into college not really knowing anything about fraternity life, what it was like, how it worked, whatever, and the whole nine. So I rushed around and kind of hit it off with some people, but not really. Make a long story short, I was not planning on going to AE Pi at all. And they ended up giving me a bid, and very few other places ended up giving me a bid just because I was rushing around. I didn't go to their events or things just find a way of working out. And so I got a few bids, and of those bids, for whatever reason, AE Pi just made the most sense, even though weirdly, I had rushed in other places more than I rushed at AE Pi. And for whatever reason, it just felt right. It just made sense in the moment. And again, like I said, it was not my plan at all, but I wound up there and I'm really glad that I did because I've got so many great friends and connections that I've made as a result of being in that fraternity.
Yeah, I agree with you. Same exact thing. I was very sheltered in high school, and I think fraternity definitely opened up my eyes to some new things that were happening. And I still remember the first time going to Penn State as an undergrad. As a matter of fact, my best friend was going to Penn State at the time, and I remember walking into my fraternity house at Penn State. And just looking like they had a dedicated ritual room in the fraternity house with like particular insignia in the floors. Right. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, it just blew me away. And I think, the fraternity house there that we have at Penn State, I think is one of the best fraternity houses in the country. So you certainly have beautiful fraternity houses, a very rich and robust fraternity and sorority system that goes back, literally hundreds of years. So, I mean, good for you. I think all of that experience certainly has built you into who you are today.
100%.
Yeah, and when we talk about Penn State and we talk about the Greeks, we always talk about THON. I mean, that is what Penn State and the IFC and Panhellenic and all of that. I mean, that's really what it's known for. And THON is the gold standard for philanthropic events throughout the country. So I'm wondering, how did magic help you go 46 straight hours without sitting down, without sleeping, in order to raise money for kids with cancer?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, because a lot of people forget that THON was started by the fraternities and sororities, and people think of Greek life, especially now, it has such a bad rap, which is a shame. I mean, some of it is definitely rightfully so, but it's a shame because Greek life does so much good for the community as well. There's pretty much, from everybody that I know, there are charitable quotas that you have to meet and things like that when you join a sorority. These organizations try to benefit the community around them. And THON is really, like you said, the gold standard for that. For those of you who are listening who don't quite know what THON is, it's the largest student-run philanthropy in the world. Every single year, around 17,000 Penn State students come together for 46 hours where they don't sit down and they don't sleep for a dance marathon that raises millions and millions of dollars every year to make sure that families who are going through pediatric cancer don't see a medical bill. So it is by far the greatest thing that I've ever been a part of. And I had the privilege to dance in THON, which means I went all 46 hours without sitting or sleeping. Without a doubt, the hardest physical challenge I've ever undertaken, probably that I ever will undertake. And we could even get into those stories of the crazy things that physically happened to me throughout those 46 hours. But for me, magic was something that I did even before I danced. When I was a spectator, I would use it to entertain those around me, those dancing around me while they were going the full 46 hours. And magic has this weird ability to get people in the moment. And so often, even outside of THON, you know, we're thinking about tomorrow, we're thinking about yesterday, we're worried about the future, we're worried about being here by this time and there by that time. But when you see a good magic trick and something vanishes in front of your face, you're not thinking to yourself, oh my God, I got to go do my taxes. Oh, I got to go pick the kids up from here or there. You're really in the moment. And with THON, you're trying to go 46 hours. So you're kind of, even subconsciously, if you don't realize it in your head, you're like, just get me to 46. I'm at, you know, and when you're dancing, you don't know exactly what time it is. They intentionally keep the time away from you so that you don't get too much in your own head where you feel like an hour's passed, but it's only been 15 minutes, so that you can't keep track of time. You know, you just dance, and when it's over, you'll know that it's over. And that's kind of one of the things that they do to help the dancer. You're not supposed to mention the time. And so similarly, but you still think about it, of course, right? You still think about it as you're going through that process. You're kind of like, all right, well, it's been, all right, well, I know the sun's come up and gone down, or this person's come and gone, which means it must be this time or whatever. But again, like I said, when you see a magic trick, you're not thinking about, oh, I've got X amount of hours to go or X amount of hours behind me. You're thinking right now in the moment, and staying grounded, staying present is really helpful when you're trying to do a dance marathon.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I mean, even watching one of those David Copperfield specials, I mean, you totally lose track of time. You totally lose track of everything that's going on around you. You're just fixated on this feat that he's about to do and the storytelling that he goes, you know, puts you through, and you're just in his world. And you forget about the fact that you got some bills that are due. You forget about everything else. It all fades to the back for a really good magician. So I love that story. And I certainly love the great work that Penn State does with THON. I think they don't get enough good credit for what they do with THON. Certainly the fraternity and sorority system has its share of problems. I think we agree with that. But THON is really just a fantastic, fantastic event. And I really hope that that spreads even further to other campuses, because I think it is possible. It takes time to grow to, you know, raising over $10 million a year. Takes time to do that. But that being said, super proud of the fraternity and sorority system at Penn State.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
And it's super cool too, because it's so unique. Usually you donate to a charity and you don't actually know specifically where your money ends up. You know, it's helping the cause, you know, it's pushing, you know, a larger goalpost forward. But you don't see the specific people usually. Well, with THON, we get paired up with families. So I know the families that I'm helping, that my dancing is benefiting. And that is really the most gratifying experience ever, because you get to see these people and you know their stories. You go on this journey with them, this journey through the unimaginable, and being able to see them, being able to bring them joy, both with just hangouts and magic tricks, and just being there for them in general, letting them know that you're supporting them, means the world to them. And it's my favorite part about THON. I still talk to my families that I was paired up with, that are our adopted families is what they call them. And I still talk to those people. And so you just really, it fosters such a cool relationship. And one of the things that I always say is that THON is just one big trick. And of course, I don't mean it's a scam. I mean, it's a magic trick, because for those 46 hours, just like we said, when you see a magic trick, when you're watching David Copperfield or me, hopefully, you're not worried about, paying your bills or what's due or what's in the past or what's in the future. You're really in the moment. And so THON is one big magic trick. For 46 hours, these families get to step into the Bryce Jordan Center in State College, and they don't have to worry about, oh, when's my next appointment? When's my blood work going to come back? When's this? When do I have to be here? They're just kids for 46 hours out of the year. And for most of them, it's the only 46 hours they get where they just get to be a kid. Think about thinking back when you were a kid, how much you took for granted, and the ability to give that gift to these kids of just being a kid is for the tens of millions of dollars that we raise, that's worth so much more.
Yeah, all great points. I love all of it. You also believe that magic can help you gain confidence. How is that?
Yeah, well, I could tell you, as a magician who used to be terrified to tell people that he was a magician, I've gone on kind of my own confidence journey. I was always a pretty confident kid, and you would never really know anything was up. But I was, like I said, terrified to tell people that I did magic. Again, I've been doing it since I was 2. Up until I was like 13, I was so shy and I was so afraid, because it was the thing that made me weird. It was the thing that made me stand out. And so eventually, to kind of sum up a story, this is a story that I tell in my live show actually all the time, but I'll give you a little bit of a short version of it here. And I went to performing arts camp. And I got there. It was an overnight camp, my first time in an overnight camp. And I went to this performing arts camp specifically for the magic program. That's why I went. And I get there, and there's a kid, I get to my bunk, and there's a kid named Josh who's in my bunk. And Josh says, we get to talking, and he says, what do you do? Because everybody at the camp does something, right? That's kind of the nature of a performing arts camp. Every kid is the weird kid, either because they're a dancer, singer, painter, whatever it is. And I really didn't want to answer his question of what I did, because I was like, oh my God, I just got here. Let me at least unpack my stuff and gain a little bit of a rapport with these people. Let them like me before they have to find out the dreaded fact about me that I'm a magician. And eventually he kind of cornered me conversationally, and I had to tell him. So I told him I was a magician, and I'll never forget the way that he looked at me, and he goes, okay, which to me, I'd never even considered that was an option. And so in that moment, he changed the way I looked at the world looking at me. And so that's what I mean when I say think like a magician in order to gain confidence, because you never really realize how little people are actually thinking about you or worrying about you. Most of it is in your own head. And so that's why when I say, if you think like a magician, you can learn to love those things about yourself that make you stand out, that make you weird, that make you feel weird, when you know that in reality, it's all in your own head.
That's an important life lesson. We all have those things that make us feel weird or feel special, right, than everybody else. But it's definitely more in our head than it is in anybody else's. Everybody else is so consumed with themselves.
Correct.
They probably don't even care.
Right.
Which
especially college kids too. They're like people are thinking about finals and their tests and their professor and this, that, and the other, and where they're going to go out tonight and whatever. Nobody cares about you in the best possible way. Take some comfort in knowing nobody cares.
It's so true. And I mean, you're talking about finals and tests. There's a lot of anxiety around college campuses. There's certainly about anxiety about the future, about your profession, your career, money. There's anxiety about the pandemic. How can magic help with anxiety as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say one of the things that I thought about, because I was looking forward to talking about this when we were talking about kind of the rush process and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was somebody who had so much anxiety about the rush process. And a lot of times you don't realize what's actually happening for you until you can look back on it. And rush is such a whirlwind, but somehow it spits you out where you're supposed to be. And so looking back on it, I would advise people who are about to rush, don't have so much anxiety, get caught up in the ride, enjoy the ride, and know that it's going to spit you out where you're meant to be. And so similarly, in college, I dealt with a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of ups and really low lows as well. And eventually one day I was so anxious and I was just so overwhelmed with emotion that I was like, I don't know what to do. I have to write a trick because that's my MO. It's my means of communication is just through magic. That's how I best know to communicate. And so I just wrote down a trick. I wrote a routine. And all of a sudden, once that routine was written, I was able to actually step back and look at really all my problems, if you will, summarized or at least physically manifested in that routine and be like, oh, okay, this kind of is a little smaller than I had originally thought. This is manageable. This, I feel better now having sort of dumped my anxiety, the things that I was going through, my troubles into this performance. And it enabled me to step back and look at it from a different perspective. And so if you're somebody who feels overwhelmed, feels like they are drowning, I'm just going to rename myself real quick here. But I would encourage you to also do the same thing. Find something creative and pour yourself into that. And then be able to take a look at what you're going through from kind of a step backwards, a little bit outside of yourself. And a lot of times that's a great outlet for those feelings for people who don't know what to do with all these feelings and anxieties that they have. If you pour it into something creative, you can be productive, bring joy, help other people, and also find that peace for yourself.
Great tip, Jake. I absolutely love it. And you're now performing all over North America for Fortune 500 companies, sold out theaters, pro sports teams, TV shows. You've been on almost 30 to date. What keeps you here in magic today?
Oh, like I said, it's that same thing. It's that reaction from people, that ability, it's addicting. It's a high in a sense. I mean, literally, not even in a sense, it's a high to be on stage. And when I do my shows, I tell people there's literally nowhere else that I would rather be. And right now, even Michael, talking to you, I can promise you there is literally nowhere else I'd rather be. And it's the truth. And that's, what keeps me in magic. It's that thing, that reaction, that ability to get a room full of people to come with you into a world where anything is possible. And that feeling is just as addictive now as it ever was.
Yeah, I totally identify with that. I feel the same way about getting up on a stage and speaking. I don't know many magic tricks, but I will tell you this, people are petrified of getting up on a stage and performing in any way. That could be in magic, it could be speaking for an hour. People literally would rather die than be in that situation up on a stage talking for 60 minutes. And for me, that's where I feel most at home. It's bizarre. I was also an introvert, going into college. That changed after you become president of your chapter of your fraternity.
You got to step up there.
You need to step up and things will evolve for you. So I got over that. But, that's where I feel most at home is on a stage with 4,000 people, college students, listening to every word that comes out of my mouth. And for me to be able to help them to make their college campus safer in some way, whether it be, hazing, sexual assaults, alcohol, drugs, whatever, if I can leave that campus a little bit safer and educate and entertain them at the same time for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, that is where I'm most at home. It's right there.
It's weird too, because that's the number one, public speaking is the number one fear of people across the board is public speaking. And you are right. It's terrifying, but it's also, once you kind of flip over that fence and you start to do it and people resonate with it, it's weirdly addictive. And you're exactly right. It's terrifying. But it's also the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
it's a huge rush. There's no question about it. Huge rush. I love every minute of it. I wish I could bottle it up. But the reality is, as a speaker, you say that you're a full-time speaker. My time actually speaking is such a small percentage of the total bubble, right? I'm actually a professional marketer. I actually am marketing most of the time to get on that stage for such a small amount of time. But that's how big the draw is. That's how addicting it really is.
And even that's such a good point, because a lot of people don't consider that, especially college kids. They think they're going to be an engineer. Well, I got to be the best at engineering, or they think they're going to be a teacher. I got to be the best at teaching. But really, regardless of what your profession is, the number one skill that you can learn if you're leaving college, and that I would encourage people to learn while they're in college, is communication. Because if you can it doesn't matter how well you can do something, you need to be able to communicate to other people that you can do that thing well. And you need to take the thing that you're good at and wrap it in a package and present it to other people so that they know how your skill impacts them and provides value to them. Because at the end of the day, no matter how well you do something, it's about providing value to other people.
100%. And that's why I advocate for all college students who are listening. Go and take a public speaking course on your campus. I'm telling you, it is worth the price of admission. You will not be sorry that you did it, no matter what you do, even if you're an engineer, you're a math major, whatever, it doesn't matter. At some point, you're going to have to sell yourself, whether it be at an interview or whatever. And if you don't have those public speaking skills, if you can't wrap yourself into a pretty bow and a box like Jake is talking about and present it and show how you're going to be able to help the world, you're not going to be able to realize your dreams and your goals. So I love everything that Jake has thrown out.
And the best part is when you're in college, nothing matters. Do whatever you want. Try new things.
Yeah.
If you get up and you try public speaking and you suck, you still have a place to live. You still have food to eat. You still have friends. You still have things to do on the weekend. You still have the same classes and assignments you were going to have beforehand. Now is the time. If you're in college, try it out. You might as well get good at something and fail while you're in college so that you're good at it by the time you leave college. And that's something that I was told to by actually magician mentors who I asked them, I'm going to college. Do you have any tips of being a magician in college? And they said, try other things, whether it's musical theater. I tried stand-up comedy by itself while I was in college, which was terrifying because I didn't have the crutch of a magic trick. A lot of people would be like, what? How is a magic trick less risky than doing stand-up and telling a joke? But it is, at least for me, because I'm used to doing the magic tricks. I'm not used to not having a trick at the end of my jokes. So I was able to try that new thing. And they basically said exactly what I just said to you. If you try stand-up, if you try musical theater or any other art form or any new thing and you suck at it, you still have an apartment, you still have food. So should definitely try new things, learn new things, expand your horizons, or at least try to find out what they are so that you can then expand them while you're in college.
100% agree. Now I have a deep question for you, and this is only a question that a magician can answer.
Oh,
if
no.
if the tricks are just tricks, then is magic really real?
The answer is yes. A lot of magicians would say no. And a lot of magicians that I really respect that are arguably far more successful and influential, at least in the world of magic, than I am, would say no. But I say yes. And here's my argument for yes. Because magic, real magic at least, is not exclusive to tricks, right? So when you watch a couple dance do their first dance at their wedding, when you watch a proposal, which I've had the amazing pleasure of being able to facilitate a proposal. I set up a whole fake like magic show and facilitated a proposal that way. That was amazing. But when you see that, or even when you see a game-winning goal in overtime and the whole place is packed and they all go nuts, you're going to tell me that's not magic. Magic is that indescribable feeling that you get when suddenly nothing else in the world matters. Now, don't get me wrong. Tricks are a great one of, in my opinion, the best vessel through which to experience real magic. But real magic is not exclusive to tricks. And so magic is real. It is real. The tricks are fake. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that I have supernatural powers or anything like that, but magic is real. And I think that's part of the point, is that if an ordinary guy like me can inspire real magic in other people, then you could do anything too, because magic is real. But like I said, just not exclusive to the tricks.
I really like that explanation, and that hits home for me because I, like you, am also an NHL fan. And so, if it's, let's just say the Rangers and Flyers, in the playoffs and it's overtime and the Rangers win at the Garden, that's magic, right?
Right. I hate, I'm hoping Lord Stanley's parading down this. I've got a picture of Broad Street behind me for those of you who aren't watching the Zoom, but I'm hoping Lord Stanley's traveling down that street come April or May. But I will give it to you. All right. It's even when the Rangers win, it's magic.
Well, listen, the Rangers and Flyers have had some great battles over the years. And it's just great franchises overall. So
Yeah.
nothing, you can't take anything away from the Philadelphia Flyers. No way.
Philly people won't let you, even if
No,
you
they won't
try.
let you,
And neither will New Yorkers.
and neither will New Yorkers. And you know what? I remember the 80s. I remember, the fights. I mean, it was just epic. And the Philadelphia Flyers are certainly part of that story.
Right.
So it's really, really great stuff. Now, I will tell you one other thing, I want to know, because I know your stance is on this. Why do you think that we need magic now more than ever?
Because the people keep telling everybody why they should be afraid. And you turn on the TV and it's like, you should hate this person and you should be afraid of this. And it's just so much division and so much fear and anxiety. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about, a lot of the reasons college kids are having anxiety is not because of the actual things that should be causing them anxiety. It's those things plus kind of the way society is now, where everybody's kind of always on edge and at each other's throat. And should I like you? Should I not like you? And magic is kind of, I know they say this about music, but I'm going to say it about magic or art in general. It's the universal language. And when you watch a magic trick, you're not worried about hating or loving the guy next to you or the girl next to you. You're really in the moment. And that's why we just need everybody to come together, sit down at a campfire. I'll show you some magic tricks. And suddenly you'll realize we're not so different after all, because even if you think this idiot next to you is an idiot, he still gets fooled by the same magic trick that you do.
You make a great point, and I love that was, what really our final question, because you make a great point. I think for college campuses right now, you should go out and hire Jake Schwartz, because you know what? His magic tricks, I mean, it just transcends the politics, the division, all of that stuff. None of that matters anymore when Jake Schwartz is in front of you. So I love it. And I hope that college students will go out and bring you in right away. I really believe that you're part of the solution here. And I can't wait to see that blossom. And I will tell you this, I love going to Philly. I'm there often because my in-laws actually live in Philadelphia, and we love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie podcast. So yes, because you have Broad Street, like right behind you on the wall, I need to know, what is your favorite restaurant in Philly?
Okay, here is my favorite Philly food. And a lot of Philly people are going to call me a little sacrilegious because I'm a vegetarian. So I'm not going to give you a cheesesteak place, okay? And I know that that's controversial. And but as much as I'm about the inclusion, I'm not afraid to be controversial when it comes to my Philly opinions. Here's what I'm going to say. Michael, when you come to Philly, pretzel and water ice. I said it, water, W-O-O-D-E-R, pretzel and water ice. That is my favorite Philly snack. As you said, I've been a lot of places in this country and tried many different soft pretzels. You can't get a pretzel and water ice. And I've tried Italian ices in New York and other places like that. It's not the same. Just like if you go to New York, you can get a bagel and it's not the same. Soft pretzel and water ice. It's my favorite after dinner Philly snack. And so that's what I recommend next time.
All right, that sounds good. I will definitely take you up on that. And if you're ever, in Manhattan, New York City, obviously we're going bagels and pizza. You understand?
I get it. You got to play by the rules when you're in New York.
That's where you go. That's what you get. I mean, it's just delicious. So right. I think that's something that we can agree on. We have very similar tastes in food, so that's good. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to bring you onto their college campus to see some magic, where can they go to connect with you?
Well, the fastest way to actually book me and get a date on my calendar is via my website, which is www.jakeofspades.com. Almost like Jack of Spades, but my name's Jake, so it's jakeofspades.com. However, if you're listening to this and you just like listening to me and you want to see some weekly magic, of course, my social medias are at The Magic of Jake Schwartz. Feel free to DM me, stay in touch, connect at The Magic of Jake Schwartz, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, weekly magic videos at the very least. Usually it's multiple times, but you get some awesome magic on there.
Jake, I tell you what, you are my favorite guest in a very, very long time. So kudos to you. I love what you're doing. You're needed right now on college campuses because of how divided we all are. And so I love what you're doing. I wish you nothing but the best. And to all of our students that are listening right now, be sure that you like Jake's interview. Make sure that you share that with other students on campus. Send it off to your IFC and Penn Atlantic and every other council that's out there. Let's get book Jake on your campus today. And what can I say? It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit.
Yeah, me too. It's been a pleasure getting to know you as well. And hopefully your listeners and viewers here, whether you're watching the Zoom or just listening to the podcast, you feel like you got to know me a little better as well.
100%. So to all of our listeners, we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much for coming by. We'll see you next time.